Hi, hello, it's Nikki and welcome to my messy bookshelf. Today I'm here to share my mid-year freakout. So I have watched so many of these videos and every one of them seems to be a little bit different. So what I have done is I have collected questions from around Booktube and just some that I thought of myself, and I have broken it up into different categories. So starting off with general reflection. How many books have I read so far this year? I have read 32 books. Am I ahead, behind, or on track with my reading goal? And I am on track. In fact, I believe Storygraph and Goodreads say that I am 3 to 4 books ahead for my reading goal. I set a goal for 60 books to be read this year, and yes, I think I am definitely on track to hit that goal. Have my reading habits changed this year? I think this year I have had a couple of weeks where I have just not felt like reading, and I have done very minimal reading, but besides that, not really. Most of the time in my spare time I am reading. Moving on to highlights and favorites. My favorite book that I've read so far this year, and this is such a hard question, but I think it'll be a toss-up between 2 or 3 books. But the first one that I have to mention is Project Hail Mary, which is the most recent of the ones that I'm thinking of that I read. And Project Hail Mary was just so great. It was fantastic. Don Quixote was the favorite before that, but also I think Wives and Daughters was excellent as well. So those 3 are the ones that come to mind, though there are many other excellent ones that are popping into my head right now. So yeah, I can't say every book was my favorite, but there were quite a few 5-star reads that I've read this year so far. A book that pleasantly surprised me, I think I will have to say Moby Dick. Moby Dick is a book that I expected to hate, and I had tried reading it a few times, and for whatever reason this year I read it and I loved it. So yes, very pleasantly surprised with that. A book that lived up to the hype. For me, I mean, obviously Project Hail Mary, but The Great Gatsby. I read that book for the first time this year as well, and I loved it. So yes, definitely. A favorite reread. I have reread, I think, 3 books this year. I think I'll have to go with Jane Eyre, though The Secret Garden was also a wonderful, comforting reread. The best audiobook or narration so far, hands down, I have to say Project Hail Mary. Don Quixote is a close second, but Project Hail Mary, the narration made me basically almost read that book twice in the same week. Normally, when I listen to an audio that I'm also reading a physical copy, I will listen to a chapter here and there in the car, and I might go back and read that chapter when I get home if I felt like I missed anything. But for Project Hail Mary, I went back and listened to the last half of the book. So I would listen to it in the car, go back, read the chapter, listen to more in the car, and yeah, I listened to, like at home, I was listening to the audio of that and then reading the physical version. So fantastic. The Don Quixote audio that I listened to, I listened to a chapter here and there, and it was also fantastic, but definitely Project Hail Mary. Moving on to Lowlights and Disappointments. The most disappointing book that I've read this year. I have to actually look. I'm gonna consult my list here of books that I've read this year. I think I would have to say The Inimitable Jeeves. That one, or actually the last book that I read from the Inspector Gamache series. But I think The Inimitable Jeeves. a book I DNF'd. I think the only one that I hardcore DNF'd was the second book in the Fourth Wing series. What was it called? Iron Flame. Yes, that was the only one. And why? I just found it so cringe. I found it very cringe. So I did not continue. I made it almost 3/4 through the book, and I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. A book I wanted to love but didn't. I think for this one, I'll have to say book 3 in the Inspector Gamache series. What is that? The Cruelest Month. I didn't not like it. I did like it, but I wanted to love it, and I did not love it. Oh, the next question kind of addresses why. Least favorite character you've met. I think there are a couple of characters in this series, but in this book that I found extremely annoying. So I think that contributed to why I didn't love it. But yeah. Moving on, emotional impact. A book that made me cry this year. Project Hail Mary, definitely. And I think that's the only one that actually made me cry, like actual tears. Pachinko came pretty close as well. A book that made me laugh out loud, definitely Don Quixote. I was cracking up for most of the book. A book that felt like a hug. I think I would have to say Project Hail Mary or The Secret Garden. A quote that stuck with me. Actually, the only one that comes to mind is a quote from Moby Dick that I actually wrote down when I was taking notes. And it's when Ishmael is inside the church before he embarks on the Pequod. And he's looking at the other people in the church and thinking how many of them have lost a loved one at sea. And he says, "Oh, ye whose dead lie buried beneath the green grass, who standing among the flowers can say, here lies my beloved. Ye know not the desolation that broods in bosoms like these." And yeah, I think that's so relevant to a life at sea during that time period. You know, so many people lost loved ones. They don't know if they started a new life in a foreign land or if they went down with their ship. So I just think that's so sad. Discovery and growth, excuse me. A new favorite author. I'd probably say Andy Weir, because, I mean, I guess he wasn't a new author to me. That was, Project Hail Mary was the second book I've read by him, but now I want to read anything else he puts out. Louise Penny, even though the third book wasn't my favorite, I just started reading her this year and really enjoyed all of the books, especially the first two. A genre that I've started exploring or want to. So I wouldn't say that this is a genre, but I have been reading a lot more of the chunkier classics that I've been putting off for a while. Most notably Don Quixote, Wives and Daughters, and Moby Dick. Those are all three of them enormous books that I read this year that I had been putting off for a very long time. Also, I guess sci-fi, it's not something that I had never read before, but I'm kind of craving more after Project Hail Mary, so it's a good thing that July is coming up. Let's see, a book that challenged my thinking. I'd have to say it's one that I am currently reading, and it's Mayflower. And just the way the author is challenging what we know about the settlers that came over and various things that transpired once they got there. It wasn't all immediately the natives and the Puritans being enemies, but there were some things that I did not know. So it's been a challenge to, I've been really loving the book, but it's been challenging to think about different things. A book outside my comfort zone that I enjoyed. I would have to say maybe The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby, because normally I stay away from American classics. I like classics set somewhere else during, you know, a different time period. Let's see, what other questions do we have here? Anticipation for the rest of the year. A book that I must read before the year ends. Okay, I'm not going to say must, but I would like to read before the end of the year. And that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's a book that my daughter pulled out of the TBR jar for me, and it is one that I have wanted to finish anyway. So yeah, that one. A book that's been on my shelf for far too long. Well, Moby Dick was one of them. And I finally got to that one. I can't think of any off the top of my head that have been there forever. There's quite a few that have been there forever. Was it House of Leaves? House of Leaves. The really creepy one about the house that grows a room. That one has been on my shelf for probably about 10 years, at least. A most anticipated release for the rest of the year. Honestly, I don't really follow new releases like that. There's enough backlist to keep me busy. If I see something I like when I go to the bookstore or the library, I will pick it up, but I'm not really tracking that, so I really couldn't say. A series I want to finish or start by December. For this one, I might have to say the rest of Shogun. I just finished Shogun and part 1, and I believe there are more books. I know they're part 2, but it's technically part of the same book, and I have been pulled into that world, so yeah. Let's see, and there are some bonus questions. The most beautiful book cover you've seen this year. These are just for fun. I honestly can't say. I would say the cover for, oh my goodness, I don't have it here. Okay, I'm back. So this one is a fairly recent purchase, and this is A Journey to the Center of the Earth, and it's actually one that I'm considering for July. And this is just to add to our collection of the leather-bound children's classics. Never occurred to me that this was a children's classic, but the smaller ones are usually the children's ones. But yeah, I just think that this cover is very pretty. It's got like the gold foil, and it's on the back as well. So really thought that was pretty, and it is one that I am considering for science fiction in July. My favorite reading spot right now, normally it would be in a cozy chair or the sofa, but I've been reading a lot sitting right here at my desk. And I think the reason is, and I won't go into the whole story, we had a burst pipe in the kitchen. It required the floors and everything to need to get pulled up, so we have a bunch of stuff stacked around the house while construction is going on. So I am most comfortable sitting in my little corner over here because the clutter of all of the things stacked around the house is driving me insane while they repair the kitchen and the utility closet and stuff. But yeah. And then what is my reading mood? This is the final question for Just for Fun. What's your reading mood going into the second half of the year? I am very optimistic. I'm very happy. I have had more 5-star reads this last 6 months than I think I did the whole last year. So I'm very optimistic. I am hoping that this keeps up. Even the ones that I didn't care for very much, wasn't even that I didn't care for them, they just weren't 5-star reads for me. They were 3 and 4 maybe. So yeah, that was my check-in for the first half of 2025. So if you are interested in these questions, I will put them down below if you would like to share your thoughts on these questions. And I just thank you so much if you made it through the end of this video. Take care. Bye.